The crystal chandelier scattered diamonds of light across white linen as Julian Ashford lifted his wine glass, half listening to Vanessa's laughter rippling through the low hum of silverware and murmured conversations. The restaurant was one of those places where reservations took months, and every table held someone who mattered. He'd chosen it deliberately, the kind of backdrop that made relationships look better than they felt. Then his hand stopped mid-air. Across the dim expanse of marble and candlelight, near floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering cityscape he'd helped build, sat a woman whose face he'd trained himself not to search for in crowds anymore. 5 years. 5 years of convincing himself he'd moved forward. She was cutting something on a small plate, leaning close to 2 children, twins, from the identical way they tilted their heads, studying oversized menus with the serious concentration of the very young. Dark hair catching the light. Small hands. The angle of their jawlines made something cold slide through his chest. Vanessa was still talking, gesturing with her wine glass, completely unaware that the floor had just dropped out from under him. The twins laughed at something their mother said, bright and unguarded, and Julian realized he'd forgotten how to breathe. The wine caught candlelight, throwing red shadows. Julian set it down carefully. Across the table, Vanessa described a gallery opening, her voice animated, diamond earrings flashing. 6 months of this. Pleasant dinners, Hamptons weekends, the comfortable rhythm of 2 successful people filling time together. But he couldn't hear her anymore. His attention kept pulling back to where Olivia sat with the twins, mediating some small argument between them with practiced calm. When had she learned that? When had she become someone who navigated childhood conflicts with such ease? "Julian?" Vanessa's voice cut through. "You're not listening." He manufactured a smile. "Sorry, long day." Her gaze followed his across the restaurant, came back sharp. "Someone you know?" "Old friend. Haven't seen her in a while." Vanessa studied him, then folded her napkin precisely. "I have an early morning. Maybe we should call it a night?" Outside, waiting for the valet, she stood apart with careful distance. When the car arrived, she looked at him through the open door. "Whoever she is, I hope she's worth it." Then she was gone, and Julian was alone on the sidewalk, and his feet were carrying him back inside before he could think better of it. He ordered scotch at the bar he didn't want, watching their table. The twins were finishing dinner now, the girl eating slowly while the boy drew on the paper tablecloth with a crayon. Olivia checked her phone once, then gave her full attention back to her children. Complete presence. Julian couldn't remember managing that even during their best years. Memory surfaced. Olivia across their dining table 5 years ago, talking while he'd responded to emails. She'd gradually stopped trying. How many dinners had they spent that way? The twins were getting restless, the boy bouncing while the girl leaned against her mother with boneless exhaustion. Olivia signaled for the check, counted out cash. Not a credit card. Another small change speaking to a life he knew nothing about. Julian followed them outside, keeping distance. Watched her bundle them into bright jackets, adjust matching striped hats, then hail a regular yellow cab. He stood on the corner as it disappeared into traffic, cold seeping through his suit. His phone buzzed. "Vanessa, I think we both know this isn't working. Take care of yourself." He walked instead of calling a car. 20 blocks through November cold, replaying those moments. The twins' laughter, Olivia's patient attention, the shape of the boy's jaw. The penthouse was dark when he arrived. Julian stood at the windows without turning on lights. 60 floors of separation. He'd bought this place after Olivia left, wanting the view and the statement. Tonight it felt like an expensive box designed for looking out rather than letting anyone in. He pulled out his phone and searched her name. Olivia Chen. Results were sparse, but buried on the 3rd page. A neighborhood newsletter mentioning a volunteer coordinator at a community center in Prospect Heights. The photo showed her surrounded by children in an art class, really smiling. He zoomed in, searching for small faces. Nothing clear, but the address was there. Timeline math ran through his head. 5 years. If those were her children, if she'd been pregnant when she left. He stopped the thought, poured scotch, tried to remember their last real conversation. Not the final fight, but the last time they'd talked like two people who'd chosen each other. Over breakfast, maybe, 6 months before the end. Both reading separate screens in comfortable silence that had stopped being comfortable. The memory sharpened. A doctor's appointment. She'd asked him to come, mentioned it over coffee with careful casualness. He'd agreed, put it in his calendar. Then quantum systems hit a snag, emergency board meeting, and he'd texted instead. Sorry, board meeting ran long. We'll make the next one. Promise. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Note saying only I can't do this anymore. He'd thought she'd overreacted, would eventually call. She never had. 6 months later, divorce papers arrived. Professional, efficient, asking for nothing but freedom. He'd signed them at his desk between meetings. October 15th, 5 years ago. Count forward 9 months. July. Right when he'd been in Singapore for 3 weeks closing the quantum deal. If she'd been pregnant, she'd gone through it alone. Julian set down the glass, stared at the city lights blurring slightly. When had he last cried? Not at his father's funeral, not when Olivia left, but something about those children tonight, about watching Olivia lean close to hear them with complete attention, cracked something open. Dawn came grey and reluctant. Julian hadn't slept. Saturday stretched ahead. He should work, should hit the gym. Instead, he was in his car heading to Brooklyn, no plan beyond needing to see them again. The community center was brick and broad windows, playground visible through chain-link fence. Children's voices carried on cold air. Julian sat across the street, engine running, trying to breathe normally. Then the door opened. Olivia stepped out with the twins flanking her, bundled in practical coats. They were talking over each other, and she was laughing, trying to arbitrate. The boy tugged her toward the playground. The girl pointed down the street. Olivia just smiled and listened. He should leave, but his hand was on the door, his body moving, and then he was crossing the street, and Olivia was turning, her face doing something complicated. Julian, what are you doing here? The twins went quiet, looking up with identical curiosity. The resemblance was unmistakable now. I saw you last night, at the restaurant. His voice came out rougher than intended. I needed to know. Something shifted in her expression. We should talk. Harper, Hudson, go play. Stay where I can see you. They ran toward the playground without hesitation. Harper and Hudson. His children had names. How did you find me? No accusation, just tired resignation. Community Center newsletter. He paused. Are they mine? She watched the twins climbing playground equipment. Does it matter? Of course it matters. You didn't want children, Julian. Every time I brought it up. Not yet. Later, when the fund was stable, when we had more time. If you'd told me you were pregnant, I tried to tell you. I asked you to come to that appointment. Do you remember what it was for? The pieces clicked. The ultrasound. The first one. 8 weeks. I wanted you there when we found out if everything was okay. I wanted to share that moment. She wrapped her arms around herself. You sent a text. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Even something as important as a pregnancy wasn't going to change your priorities. So I left before you could prove it more clearly. You should have told me anyway. You had a right to be present, to show up when it counted. You gave up those rights long before I left. Hudson was helping Harper reach the monkey bars, his face serious. Julian watched them. "Let me fix this." "You can what? Write a check?" Her voice was gentle now, somehow worse than anger. "You've always been good at fixing things with money. That's not fair." "It's true." She was quiet. "They're happy. They have friends and school and a life that works. They don't ask about their father because, as far as they know, he's never been part of their story. I could be now. What would that look like? You show up once a month when your schedule allows, take them to expensive restaurants, buy them things to make up for not being there." Every word landed hard. "You're saying I don't get a chance." "I'm saying you had your chance. Years of chances. You chose board meetings and business trips over showing up when it mattered." She turned to face him. "I'm not keeping them from you out of spite. I'm protecting them from being disappointed by someone who'll always choose something else when things get difficult." Harper ran up, breathless. "Mama, Hudson won't let me be captain." "Then negotiate with him, sweetheart. Use your words." Olivia smoothed the girl's hair, and Harper ran back. "I saw you last night," Olivia said quietly. "You looked right through me at first, like I was furniture. Old habits." The reference to their last fight stung. "I didn't mean—" "You never meant to. That's the problem. You just did, because there was always something more urgent." She watched the twins. "These kids deserve someone who chooses them first." "Then let me be that person. You can't just decide for a weekend when you're feeling guilty. This is every day. Sick kids at 3 a.m., school projects, mediating fights, being there even when it's boring or interferes with your plans." She met his eyes. "Can you honestly tell me you'd choose a school play over a board meeting?" Julian opened his mouth and found no answer. "I want to try." "Wanting isn't enough." Her voice stayed gentle. "They don't need someone who tries when it's convenient." "What if I started small? Came by sometimes. Not as their father, just as someone who wants to be around." She studied him. "To what end? To ease your guilt? To know them, even if they never know who I am." Long silence, watching their children play. Finally, "I'll think about it. But if I say yes, there are rules. You don't get to disrupt their lives or disappear when things get hard. You don't get to be halfway in." "I understand. I'm not sure you do. This isn't a business deal. Either you're genuinely willing to show up and do the work, or walk away now." "I need time to figure out how to do this right." "You've had 5 years. Her expression softened slightly. "But yes, think about it. Then call me if you're sure." She pulled a business card from her pocket, community center info with her cell written on back. "Don't call unless you mean it. I won't let you hurt them." She called the twins. They came running, faces flushed. Julian crouched to their level, seeing his mother's smile in the girl's face, his own stubborn cowlick in the boy's hair. They were right there, within reach, but separated by years of absence. "Say goodbye to Mr. Ashford," Olivia prompted. "Bye," they chorused, then pulled her toward the street, already talking about lunch. Julian stood alone, watching them disappear. The drive back felt endless. He sat in bridge traffic thinking about everything Olivia said, about showing up, about being present. His phone buzzed with notifications. Vanessa, his assistant, board members. The machinery of his life running without his attention. He pulled up his calendar at a stoplight. 3 months of color-coded chaos. Meetings, negotiations, conferences in different countries. Someone important whose time was valuable. But not to anyone who shared his DNA. Julian typed to his assistant. "I need you to clear my calendar. Everything except essential board meetings. Starting Monday." Sent it. Then sat in the parking garage near his apartment, trying to figure out what came next. The business card sat on the passenger seat. He picked it up, studied Olivia's neat handwriting, tucked it in his wallet. The penthouse was pristine and empty. Julian walked through rooms that felt like an expensive hotel. Art that meant nothing. Elegant, uncomfortable furniture. Spotless kitchen because he never cooked. Everything screamed success and whispered loneliness. His phone rang. Vanessa. He looked at her name and knew whatever they'd been building had ended. He sent a text. "I'm sorry about last night. I'm going through some things. You deserve someone who can give you full attention. I'm sorry." Her response. "Did you just break up with me via text?" Shame washed over him. He hit call. "You're right. You deserve better than a text." "What happened last night?" "I saw my ex-wife. And some things I'm not ready to talk about. But Vanessa, we've been going through the motions. We look good together and it's easy. But it's not real." "Are you getting back together with her?" "No. This is about me figuring out who I am when I'm not hiding behind my schedule." Silence. "At least you're being honest now, even if the timing sucks." "I really am sorry." "Yeah, me too." She hung up. Julian set the phone down, walked to the window. The city stretched below, indifferent. Somewhere in Brooklyn, his children were having lunch. Olivia was probably relieved he'd left. He pulled out his laptop and started typing. Everything that would need to change. Meetings to delegate. Travel to minimize. Boundaries to set with work that never had boundaries. It looked impossible. A complete restructuring that would damage his reputation and cost him opportunities. But the alternative was sitting here alone in 50 years, rich and respected, and completely disconnected. His assistant responded, "Are you okay?" "Fine. Just had a wake-up call. We'll talk Monday about restructuring." He closed the laptop. Thought about those twins laughing on the playground, about Olivia's gentle but firm boundaries, about 5 years that couldn't be bought back. The sun moved across the sky. Julian sat watching it, trying to imagine what being present actually looked like. The shape was still fuzzy, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was looking at something real instead of just successful. Olivia, the apartment was quiet after the twins went to bed. Olivia sat at the kitchen table with lukewarm tea, trying to process what had happened at the playground. Julian had found them, had stood there with that stricken expression, asking about the children he'd never known existed, and she'd had to decide in real time how much truth to give him. She'd thought about this moment for 5 years, rehearsed different versions in her head during midnight feedings, and terrible twos and every milestone he'd missed. In some versions, she was angry, righteous, told him exactly what his absence had cost. In others, she was dignified, dismissive, proved she didn't need him. None of them had prepared her for the reality. Him standing there looking lost, her feeling simultaneously vindicated and exhausted. Harper's drawing was still on the refrigerator. A family of 3 stick figures holding hands, smiling. Her daughter's version of complete. No empty space waiting for a 4th figure. The twins didn't ask about their father because they'd never needed one. Olivia had been enough. Both parents, sole provider, complete family unit. She'd made it work through community center programs and shared babysitting and the network of other single parents who understood that sometimes family was chosen rather than given. But watching Julian crouch to the twins' level today, seeing real pain in his face when they'd run past him like he was any other stranger, had complicated things. She didn't want to feel sympathy for him, didn't want to remember the man she'd fallen in love with before his empire consumed everything else. That man had been capable of presence, of attention, of seeing her instead of looking through her. That man had disappeared somewhere around year 3 of their marriage, replaced by someone who lived in his calendar and spoke in conference calls. Her phone buzzed. Text from Patricia, another single mom from the community center. "Saw you talking to that guy at the playground. Everything okay?" Olivia typed back. "Old friend. It's complicated." She didn't have words yet for what Julian's appearance meant. Didn't know if she wanted him in their lives or just wanted him to understand what he'd missed and leave them alone. The twins were happy. Adjusted. They didn't need disruption from someone who'd proven he couldn't maintain commitment. But they also deserved to know their father, if he could actually be one. That was the question. Could Julian Ashford, tech investor and empire builder, become Julian the dad who showed up to school programs and wiped noses and survived on 4 hours of sleep? Olivia had serious doubts. People didn't change fundamental priorities in their 50s just because guilt got uncomfortable. She finished the tea, washed the cup, checked on the sleeping twins. Harper had kicked off her blanket as usual. Hudson had arranged his stuffed animals in careful order, both of them beautiful and complicated, and hers in every way that mattered. If Julian wanted to be part of this, he'd have to earn it, not with money or grand gestures, but with the daily work of being reliable. The unglamorous, unrecognized labor of just showing up. Her phone sat on the counter with his number typed but not saved. Olivia stared at it for a long moment, then deleted the digits. If he was serious, he'd find a way to prove it. And if he wasn't, she'd protected her children from one more disappointment. Monday arrived with Julian's calendar clearing and his partners demanding emergency meetings. He'd spent Sunday drafting restructuring proposals, mapping out what distributed leadership would actually require. Now he sat in the conference room facing 3 concerned faces and increasing hostility. "You want to what?" Marcus Reeves leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "Step back? Hand over acquisition decisions? Julian, we built this firm on your reputation. And it's time the firm stood on something more stable than one person's availability." Julian kept his voice level. "I'm not disappearing. I'm redistributing responsibility so the company isn't vulnerable to my schedule. This is about that woman, isn't it?" Sarah Chen, no relation to Olivia, studied him with sharp eyes. "The one at the restaurant. Vanessa mentioned you couldn't stop watching someone." Julian met her gaze. "This is about me realizing I've been running from everything except work for 5 years. The firm will survive without me micromanaging. The question is whether my personal life will survive if I don't make changes. We have the Silverton deal closing next month." Marcus said. "They specifically want you at the table. Then one of you will explain I'm transitioning roles and they'll work with you instead. If they walk, they walk." Silence fell heavy. "You're serious about this?" Sarah said finally. "This isn't a phase or burnout. You're actually restructuring your life. Completely serious. I'll stay involved in strategic decisions and board responsibilities. But the day-to-day, the travel, the constant availability, that needs to shift to others." "What if we're not ready?" Marcus asked quietly. "Then you'll become ready. The same way I did 15 years ago when nobody thought I could build this." Julian stood. "I'm sorry for the sudden change, but this is happening. We can make it smooth or make it painful. Your choice." He left them arguing among themselves, walked back to his office and started making calls. Clients needed to be informed. Stakeholders needed reassurance. Every conversation underscored what he was walking away from: influence, control, the identity he'd built from nothing. But between calls, he thought about Harper's bright laugh and Hudson's serious questions, and the sacrifice felt less like losing something and more like finally gaining what mattered. By Wednesday afternoon, the blowback had intensified. Tech blogs ran speculation about Ashford Capital's leadership transition. 2 major clients requested reassurance calls. An acquisition partner withdrew from preliminary discussions. Julian watched his professional reputation take hits and felt surprisingly calm. This was the cost of change, measurable, public, documented in quarterly reports. Worth it if it meant becoming someone his children could rely on. Thursday, he started learning to cook. Followed YouTube tutorials for basic pasta dishes. Burned the first attempt. Got the second one barely edible. The learning curve was humbling for someone who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. But standing in his kitchen figuring out how much salt pasta water needed felt more honest than anything he'd done in years. Friday brought another consequence. Benjamin Kwan, a long-term investor, requested a meeting at a downtown steakhouse. Julian arrived to find Ben's expression carefully neutral, businessman trying to hide concern. They ordered, exchanged pleasantries, then Ben leaned forward. "Talk to me, Julian. The rumors about you stepping back, the restructuring. Some of my partners are worried. They need to know Ashford Capital is stable. It's more stable now than when everything depended on my personal attention." Julian said, "Marcus and Sarah are excellent. They've been ready for expanded roles for years." "Then why the sudden change? This isn't like you." Julian cut his steak, considered how much truth to offer. "I had a wake-up call. Personal matter that made me realize my priorities were completely backwards. The firm will be fine. Better, probably, with distributed decision-making." Personal matter. Ben's tone was careful. The kind that resolves, or the kind that's permanent? Permanent. The kind that should have been priority all along. Understanding crossed Ben's face. "Family?" "Complicated family situation. I'm trying to fix old mistakes." Ben nodded slowly. "My daughter's 6. I missed her first 3 years building my company, still trying to make up for it." He paused. "Some clients will walk, some will stay because they trust the firm beyond just you. The ones who leave, maybe they weren't the right partners anyway." The conversation shifted to business details, but the implicit permission Ben had given stayed with Julian. He wasn't alone in having made these mistakes. Wasn't unique in trying to course correct. That helped somehow, knowing other fathers had taken this path and found their way through. Saturday morning, Julian drove to Brooklyn armed with simple groceries and a borrowed recipe box from his assistant's mother. He'd called Olivia mid-week, told her he was making changes, asked if he could prove commitment through actions. She'd been skeptical, but agreed he could attend a community dinner that evening. "Bring food you made yourself," she'd specified. "No catering." The center's multipurpose room buzzed with families when Julian arrived. He found the food table, set down his slightly lopsided casserole, and tried not to feel conspicuous. A woman next to him smiled. "First time here?" "Yes, just learning about the community." "I'm Patricia. That's my daughter with the purple jacket." She pointed at a girl playing with twins Julian recognized. "You have kids here?" "Just getting to know people." The deflection felt uncomfortable, but necessary. The evening moved around him. Children playing, adults talking, the comfortable chaos of community. Julian helped set up tables, cleared plates, learned names of people who knew nothing about his professional reputation. Across the room, Olivia worked with easy grace, checking in on families, making sure shy kids got included. Harper and Hudson were absorbed in tag, their voices carrying bright across the space. Near the end, Harper approached him directly. "You're new?" Julian crouched to her level. "I am. My name's Julian." "I'm Harper. That's my brother Hudson." She studied him with unsettling directness. "You look sad. Do you have any kids?" The question hit harder than expected. "No." "That's probably why you're sad. Kids make everything better." She said it with such conviction he had to smile. "You might be right." "I'm always right. Mama says I'm smart." Then she ran off to join a game, leaving Julian crouched there with his heart doing something complicated in his chest. Olivia had watched the exchange. During cleanup, she found him stacking chairs. She likes you. She thinks I'm sad. You are. But you came. That counts for something. Olivia picked up a stray toy. The twins' birthday is in 3 weeks, December 15th. Small party here at the center. If you want to come, as a volunteer helping with other kids, you could. Are you sure? No, but Harper asking about you made me think maybe you're becoming part of the community. It wouldn't be strange for volunteers to help at kids' parties. She met his eyes. But Julian, they still don't know who you are. I'm not ready to tell them yet. You have to be okay with that. I'm okay with whatever you're comfortable with. She nodded and moved away. Julian stood holding folded tablecloths, processing the invitation to his children's 6th birthday party, not as their father, as helpful stranger, but more than he'd had last week. The pattern continued. Dinners every other Thursday. Julian showing up, helping, learning community rhythms. His professional life receded into background noise while this new routine took shape. Partners adapted to his reduced hours. Clients adjusted or left. The firm didn't collapse without his constant presence. If anything, decision-making became faster with distributed authority. December brought the birthday party. Julian arrived early with supplies, helped set up, watched families arrive. Olivia appeared with the twins dressed in new clothes, both vibrating with excitement. They greeted friends while she carried in a homemade cake, lopsided but obviously made with care. They helped decorate, she told him. Not pretty, but they're proud. It's perfect. And it was, representing hours of time and patience, everything he hadn't known how to do 5 years ago. The party unfolded in controlled chaos. Games, music, cake, presents. Near the end, Hudson approached where Julian was cleaning up. You came to my birthday. I did. Happy birthday, Hudson. Did you bring a present? Direct but gentle. I wasn't sure if I should. We don't know each other very well yet. Hudson considered this with serious logic. That's okay. You can give me one next year when we're friends. Then he ran back to his mother, leaving Julian standing there with tears threatening. Olivia was watching again. After the last family left, she approached. Thank you for coming, and for helping. Thank you for letting me be here. Hudson asked me who you were. She paused. I told him you're someone Mama used to know, and now you're helping at the center. He said you seem nice, but lonely. He's perceptive. They both are. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. I've been thinking about what comes next. You've been showing up consistently for 2 months. You haven't missed a commitment. That's more than I expected. Julian's pulse picked up. What are you saying? Maybe it's time to tell them the truth. Not everything, not all at once, but something. They'll start asking more questions, and I don't want to lie about who you are. She met his eyes. But I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. Once they know you're their father, there's no taking it back. School pickups when I'm stuck at work. Sick days. Boring afternoons, all the unglamorous parts. Can you really do that? Yes. No hesitation. I can. I will. We'll start slow. I'll tell them you're their dad, but you live far away with a busy job, so they won't see you every day. That gives flexibility if... She stopped. If you can't maintain this, I'll maintain it, I promise. She nodded slowly. Think about it tonight. Tomorrow I'll call with a plan. But Julian, don't make me regret giving you this chance. The twins were tired, post-party exhaustion setting in. Olivia gathered them with practiced efficiency. Say thank you to Julian for helping. Thank you. They chorused sleepily. You're welcome. Happy birthday, Harper. Happy birthday, Hudson. He crouched to their level. I hope 6 is your best year yet. Then they were gone, and Julian stood alone, feeling simultaneously full and terrified. This was real now, not theoretical. These were Harper and Hudson, specific and real, about to know he was their father. Olivia, she told them Sunday night after bath time, when they were clean and sleepy and most receptive to serious conversations. Kept it simple. You have a dad. He didn't know about you when you were babies. Now that he's met you, he wants to be part of your lives. The questions came fast and complicated. Where has he been? Why didn't he know? Is he going to live with us? Does he love us? Olivia navigated carefully, answering honestly without assigning blame. He's been working far away. Sometimes adults lose touch. No, he has his own home. Love grows when people spend time together. Harper wanted to know when she could see his house. Hudson asked if he liked dinosaurs. They processed it the way children do, concrete questions about logistics instead of emotional complexity. Olivia held them both close, promised they'd see Julian again soon, let them ask questions until they ran out of words. After they slept, she sat in the kitchen with her phone, trying to figure out how to call Julian and tell him the door had opened. She was scared, not just of him failing, but of him succeeding, of her life expanding to include someone she'd been complete without, of the twins loving him and then having to navigate shared custody and holidays and all the logistics of co-parenting with someone who'd once chosen work over her. But they deserved a father if he could be one. She'd built this life alone, but that didn't mean it had to stay that way forever. She dialed. He answered on the first ring. Monday morning, Olivia called. I told them. Last night. Her voice was steady, but he heard the underneath current. They had questions. What did they ask? Where you've been. Why you didn't know about them. If you're going to live with us. If you love them. She paused. I told them love grows when people spend time together. How did they react? Harper wants to see your house. Hudson asked if you like dinosaurs. A small laugh. They're processing logistics instead of emotions. When can I see them? Actually see them, not just at the center. Next Saturday. There's a children's museum in Brooklyn they love. Meet us there at 10. Saturday arrived with Julian's complete inability to focus. He stood outside the museum early, watching families enter, trying to calm his racing heart. Then he saw them. Olivia holding their hands, all three bundled against December cold. Harper waved with unself-conscious enthusiasm. Hi, Dad! Testing the word with obvious curiosity. Julian crouched down. Hi, Harper. Hi, Hudson. Thanks for letting me come with you today. Mama says you're going to be around more now, Hudson said, studying his face like memorizing features. I am, as much as you want me to be. Can you come every day? Harper asked. Not every day, but a lot, and I'll always answer if you call. Your mom has my number now. Inside, the museum was bright chaos, interactive exhibits designed for children. Harper dragged him to the art section, while Hudson wanted science displays. They split up, Olivia taking Harper, while Julian followed Hudson through weather and simple machines. Do you like dinosaurs? Hudson asked seriously at a fossil display. I don't know much about them, but I'd like to learn. I can teach you. I know all of them. For 20 minutes, Hudson provided comprehensive dinosaur education. Julian listened with complete attention, asking questions, encouraging the flood of information. His son was brilliant and focused and passionate about learning. They found Olivia and Harper in the play cafe, where Harper served invisible food with elaborate ceremony. Dad has to eat what I make. Those are the rules. Julian sat cross-legged on a too-small chair, accepted an invisible sandwich. This is delicious. What's in it? Rainbow sprinkles and love. Harper giggled at her own answer. Olivia watched with an expression Julian couldn't quite read. Not hostility anymore. Something like cautious hope mixed with protective watchfulness. He met her eyes, tried to communicate understanding of the gift she was giving him. They had lunch in the museum cafe. The twins argued cheerfully about exhibits. Olivia mediated with practiced ease. Julian contributed where he could, learning their rhythm, finding his place at the edges until invited further in. It felt natural and terrifying, and absolutely right. Walking out 3 hours later, Harper slipped her hand into Julian's with casual trust. "Will you come to our school program? It's in 2 weeks." Julian looked at Olivia, who gave a small nod. "Of course. Just tell me when and where." They parted at the subway entrance. Julian stood on the cold sidewalk, watching them disappear down the stairs, feeling more connected than he had in years. Not perfect, not resolved, just a beginning. The weeks built on that foundation. Julian attended the school program, clapped too loudly, started Saturday visits, parks, museums, neighborhood walks, answering endless questions. Learned about Harper's drawing and Hudson's fascination with how things worked. Discovered patience he didn't know he possessed. Olivia maintained boundaries Julian respected completely. He dropped them off on time, followed her rules about screen time and sugar, deferred to her judgment. It wasn't about proving he could override her choices, but that he could support them. His professional life continued receding. The firm ran smoothly with distributed leadership. Occasionally someone asked if he'd return to his previous schedule. Julian thought about Harper's sticky hands during walks, Hudson's serious questions during dinosaur conversations. "No," he'd say. "This is my schedule now." Spring arrived, melting snow into mud season. 4 months of consistent presence. Every planned visit, every phone call, weekend mornings when Olivia needed space. He'd learned to braid Harper's hair badly and help Hudson with homework. Had become reliable. Present. Dad. One Saturday in late April, after dropping the twins at Olivia's apartment, she invited him in for the first time. The space was small but warm, full of evidence of children raised with love. Art on the refrigerator, books scattered, 2 small beds visible through an open door, everything she'd built while he'd been accumulating empty square footage. "Coffee?" she offered, and Julian said yes. They sat at her small kitchen table while the twins played, their voices carrying comfortable through the apartment. Olivia cradled her mug, looking tired but softer. "You've surprised me. I didn't think you could actually do this." "I wasn't sure either. But you did. You've been showing up. Really showing up." She paused. "The twins ask about you when you're not around. Harper drew you a picture. Hudson told his teacher you're teaching him about investing." Julian smiled. "He asked how money works." "That's what I mean. You're learning who they are and meeting them there." Olivia set down her mug. "I think we should talk about formal arrangements. Regular schedule, not just when I invite you. Equal partnership in decisions about education and health. Shared holidays eventually." "Really?" "Really. But I need to know you're committed long term. That 5 years from now you'll still be showing up." "I will be. I promise. This is who I am now." She studied him, then nodded. "Okay. We'll work out details. But Julian, thank you. For actually changing. For becoming someone they can count on." Through the door, Harper called about some dispute. Olivia stood, smiled slightly. "Never-ending job?" "Let me help." Julian followed her to the twins' room, where Harper and Hudson were arguing about colored markers. He crouched between them, helped negotiate, felt the particular satisfaction of solving problems through patience rather than authority. This was his life now. Marker disputes and Saturday mornings and slow-building trust. Not the empire he'd built, but something infinitely more valuable. The city glittered outside Olivia's window, the same view from his penthouse, but entirely different from this perspective. Down here in the middle, rather than floating above, connected to people rather than separated by 60 floors. Harper climbed into his lap uninvited, showed him her drawing of their family, stick figures holding hands, everyone smiling. Hudson explained his latest dinosaur discovery. Olivia made lunch in the tiny kitchen. Julian sat there in the middle of his children's world, in the life he'd almost missed completely, and understood finally what wealth actually meant. Not money or power or empire, but this. The sticky fingers and patient explanations and ordinary miracles of being present. He'd spent 5 years building the wrong thing. But now, finally, he was building something that would last,